Hello and welcome to the MoxStars podcast, guys. My name is Jordan Garcia. I'm one of your hosts here, and I'm joined by my two good friends, Chris.
Hey!
And Evan. Skibby-doo! What up, guys? Real quick.
Weird energy off the bat.
Very weird, but we're going to roll with it, and I love it.
We're popping on.
So before we go any further past this weirdness, just real quick, want to shout out our socials, everything, link down below. We got a link tree. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, all that shiz. We got the YouTube channel. We got episodes coming out every Friday, so stay tuned and like and subscribe. Follow us along on this awesome Magic journey, guys.
Tell your friends. Tell Reddit.
Tell your friends.
Tell Discord. Tell your pod.
Yes. Tell your pod. All right, guys. So the main topic, which we're not getting into just yet, we're actually doing a new little episode today. It's called The Workshop. It is part deck tech, part kind of conversation. We're going to be, some person will bring in a deck. Today it is mine. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to give you kind of the rundown of it, and I'm going to pitch it to the table. We're going to talk about cards. You guys can ask me questions. I can kind of give you my thoughts on why I have maybe some weird choices. And then if you think it's all bullshit, then we can talk about changing all of it.
Yeah, and we're going to be able to lend our perspective
100%.
to that deck to hopefully find improvements to help the deck, grow on its journey.
Yeah, I don't know about you guys, but I am bored as hell of watching deck tech after deck tech on YouTube, and it's just exactly the same. And then it's the second the commander comes out, we make a deck tech, and we never look at it ever again.
Yep, we touch it, and then we let it just float into the ether and never talk about it again.
So
have you heard about Teom, Luminous Enigma?
Yeah, no. So this is our version of doing that, and so we get to kind of marinate. We get to think about all the processes, all the things that synergize with this commander and the gameplay that we want to see come from it. And then we can, after getting experience with the deck, now talk about it a little more mindfully and then kind of pose questions about it. And so it's a little more in-depth than just a little deck tech, jamming out 99 cards and calling it a day.
In-depth and interactive.
In-depth, interactive. Yeah, we can change stuff. This is a list I'm going to be bringing to a couple tournaments coming up here. So, I've been thinking about it a lot, and then getting some your guys' perspectives. I'm happy to make some changes. I think it's going to be awesome. But before that, we have our intro topic. It is the Ristic Update. It is our news segment. And today we are discussing what kind of news, Evan?
I'm actually going to pay one colorless mana, and we're not going to talk about any of the news.
You're going to just get the news?
I'm going to pay my taxes.
We're moving on.
Yeah.
Right on to the main topic, guys. Okay. All right, just kidding. Evan, what is our news today? What are we talking about?
Yeah, I'm not sure if everyone is aware, but there was a very subtle but important errata to a couple of keywords that they're making deciduous now, and that is surveil and landfall. So they just wanted to make the decision so that these keywords can appear in any set moving forward, and because they're just such common abilities.
You don't have to keep writing out the whole effect.
Yeah, like landfall is no longer limited to just Zendikar.
What was the last one we got when they... What was the most recent before that?
What, landfall?
No, what was the most recent where they started putting it on cards? I forget what it was. It wasn't surveil.
I don't know what the latest.
Bringing stuff up I'm unprepared to talk about.
But
okay, moving on.
This one's very recent. This one is important because it changes the text on a lot of cards, and it also increases the value of very particular cards. Especially with Surveil, because Surveil was a mechanic that I think a lot of players wanted to see expanded upon after it came out in Guilds of Ravnica. Like, Dimir Spybug was such a fun card to play with in draft, and you're just like, whoa, this is like creepy, crazy, powerful, and now we're seeing it like gain steam in formats like Pioneer, because it's like, it hits the field, and then all of a sudden, all these cards that have been errated to include Surveil are now triggering this, so now you have a Flying Menace like 6/6 that is just like punching face.
So what does this card do?
Dimir Spybug?
Yeah.
So it's a black and a blue insect, Flying Menace, and whenever you Surveil, put a +1/+1 counter on.
Flying Menace.
Yeah, Flying Menace, yeah.
Wow. So is there going to be like a Pioneer Surveil deck now?
People are going to try it. There's no reason not to try it. Pioneer does not have a solved meta, necessarily. There's definitely some decks that are clearly Tier 1, clearly Tier 1.5, Tier 2, but there is room, and the important thing with Surveil is that all of these cards that are relevant to the deck are going to be legal in Pioneer, because Surveil, even before it got errated to a deciduous...
Mechanic.
That's the word we're looking for. It's a relatively new mechanic in this form. So there's going to be things that Wizards can errata from older sets that is not quite the same wording as Surveil, so it doesn't quite work. So any card that you think you're going to want for this deck, if you're going to try it out in Pioneer, is pretty much going to be legal, which is nice.
Yeah, most notably, I would say that if any card is going to really make an impact in Pioneer, it's probably going to be Search for Azcanta, because if you're going to want to play that Dimir Spybug aggressive nature and play that style,
that seems like a rad combo.
It triggers every single turn.
That seems very good.
Yeah, there's potential there, because you can make a Madness deck in Pioneer that works, and that's with a dozen cards with Madness printed on them.
Quick question:
So
Murktide Regent, that was Modern Horizons, right? That's not illegal.
Yeah.
That's not going to.
But you do have access to Consider, which is now errata to say Surveil 1, draw 1.
Yeah.
So, Search for Azcanta, once you get there and you flip it or whatever, on the backside there's also value there because it lets you search, look at the top however many for an instant or sorcery. So you can
honestly I'm not flipping a Search for Azcanta more often than not.
Right. Yeah. The only reason you would flip it is because you have another one in your hand and you would like to play it.
To be fair, I've never played a format where I get to play 4 Search for Azcanta.
Yeah.
It might be very different.
Yeah. I think the important thing for me though is this errata. How crispy it makes these cards read.
Yes,
it is
just do
so
more.
clean.
Just do more.
So clean.
Yeah, I think we're actually starting to see them make steps forward, take steps forward with that in mind to say hey, let's we've created this crazy card game with hundreds of keywords. Let's make it look crispy clean by just making this one effect that's very common have one designated word.
The fact that the players often dictate the vocabulary of this game a lot of the times. By the way, I did remember what I was trying to think of. It was mill. Mill recently became its own deciduous mechanic.
Yes. Yep.
And before that, again, it was just a player created word essentially. It was not official whatsoever.
Yeah, for millstone.
Yeah, exactly. So I like it. I agree. I think it looks clean as hell. Big fan. All right, Evan, what's that other secret piece of news?
Yeah, another big piece of news is that most recently we've been talking about Secret Lair, and there is the October 2022 Super Drop.
The Super Drop!
Super Drop!
All right.
That has been happening, and there are some that are we're really interested in. We're not going to talk about every single one of these. I want to buy the whole drop. You guys know me. I want every Secret Lair that exists ever, I think, for collector's purposes, but there's only a few that I was really, really interested in for this one.
I have some exciting news for you guys. Chris bought his very first Secret Lair.
I bought my first Secret Lair.
Do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, sure. I bought the Junji Ito Secret Lair. Anime manga artist. I just absolutely love his work.
Good. The art is incredible.
Yeah. Got it foil. Got the Japanese text.
Yes.
The value is not there in the cards, except for the personal value of playing better with cards that I think look cool.
I don't know. I think a foil Thoughtseize is modern playable.
Oh, that Thoughtseize is definitely playable.
You could sell that off if you wanted to. And then Carrion Feeder is not anything to scoff at. And then a foil Doomsday is pretty
Doomsday
pretty
is sick. Although Doomsday, I will say, in EDH, I don't think is quite good enough as a sweeper, unless you're only
we know a guy who will argue
unless
tooth and nail for that.
Unless you're only in black, you have Reach, where Doomsday I think is a third tier sweeper.
It's quite the build around, but I've seen some people and we know some people that really put the effort in. He plays Rakdos almost exclusively.
Sorry, and we're talking about Damnation. Doomsday is a different card.
Oh, you're talking about Sweeper. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I hear you.
Yes.
Yeah, Doomsday is you get to choose 5 cards.
You make a pile of 6 cards.
Yeah, you essentially win the game.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the art on this is spectacular. Evan, anything you're specifically excited about? Any reprints? Any cool art?
I can't remember the
not
name
a ton of value
of it. Who's the artist? I think you got it pulled up right there, but it's the Metal Gear Solid artist.
Oh yeah, this is actually some of my favorite stuff too. It is Yoji Shinkawa.
It's the only artwork I've ever just instantly pulled the trigger on. I've definitely thought about some, but this one, when I saw the skull clamp, I was just
yeah, that skull clamp is hot.
Go check these out. I mean, all of the backgrounds are white, and then they have these really cool abstract designs on the top. So I can only imagine how these foils are going to look.
Yeah, and I saw the skull clamp. Yeah, and I was just I'm
hyped on. I'm honestly hyped on that Tezzeret the Seeker.
Yeah.
I know he doesn't get played a lot, but that Neg X ability to tutor out an artifact to the battlefield is used in a lot of combo decks.
I've never
Where there's a will, there's a way.
Exactly right.
I've never seen that card before until it was spoiled in this secret lair.
Really?
Never saw it. Never played
Oh
with
yeah,
it.
like
nothing.
a lot of like low color blue decks that it combo like will use that to get their whatever piece.
Yeah,
like
I read it and I was just like, so this just wins the game,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh yeah, all the time. Yeah, and then on top of that, you get Solemn Simulacrum and for actually Metamorph. So meh on the value on those two. But
I mean, a lot of decks are going to play Solemn Simulacrum.
they are staples. So at the very
Yeah.
least, they're the coolest looking
casual
version of those
staple.
staples now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. I thought Simulacrum was actually good in Henzi because it just reduces the cost and it dies
I thought
at the
that was
end of the
pretty
turn.
interesting.
So
That was pretty cool.
But as far as like the artwork goes, since it has a white background, we've been seeing it with like the Mystic Remora and stuff like that, where they use white highlights to like make the foil look crazy cool. And when you get these in non-foil, I think the colors and the palettes are actually going to shine a lot better on a flat background.
Right.
Like if you get the foil, you're flexing and like you want that like rainbow background. And that's why I'm getting 2 of each. I'm getting 2 non-foil. I'm going to get 2 foil too, because I want the foil for myself, but I also want the non-foil because I think it's going to have collector's purpose beyond.
That's fair.
Yeah, but this whole drop is like crazy.
Yeah, just shouting out a few things so we can move on. The Post Malone set, I'm like, Posty's
Very
fine.
notable.
Like I'm like, okay,
If you like
whatever.
Post Malone, go
But,
for it.
yeah, I'm
Yeah.
kind of whatever. But the Jet Medallion foil reprint is hot. That is going to be really sick out of that.
Hopefully this is like a domino effect and we're starting to see all of the medallions get reprints because it's just been long overdue.
And the other thing I wanted to shout out is we were talking about how awesome those Galaxy foils are out of the Infinity set. Well, they're doing Galaxy foils on some lands that are not getting printed in that set. Ash Barrens, Command Beacon, Fabled Passage, and a Strip Mine in that set. And for $50, I am very much considering getting that.
I mean, Strip Mine is playable.
Strip Mine's playable.
You know,
Fabled
Command
Passage.
Beacon. Did it say Command Beacon or Command Tower?
Command Beacon.
Command Beacon, definitely playable. The other two, I
Meh.
mean, maybe.
Well, the
I
thing
play
is-
Fabled Passage sometimes.
Yeah, and Ash Barrens isn't like totally worthless. And on a previous episode, I had said like, if you want to know what a Galaxy foil looks like, go look at a Yu-Gi-Oh card. Apparently, that's not right at all. You should be looking at Pokemon cards because that foil is the same exact foiling that they use on the first generation of Pokemon cards. So if you were to hold
Wow.
up like a Cedra or
Yeah.
whatever right next to it, it was actually the same exact print. So they
Love
just did
that.
it for the whole art, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's rad. Yeah. So yeah, take a look at it. You know, I don't think as far as the super drops go, it's the most bang for your buck value. I would not buy the whole pack.
I can't imagine the hypothetical consumer that is buying the entire super drop this October. You're all over the place. Like
Yeah.
who's the person that likes Junji Ito, Metal Gear Solid, Post Malone, and
It's-
Cute Pets or
it's-
whatever it is?
Yeah, it's kind of like a bipolar looking super drop.
You sort of have to be fiscally responsible too, because at the end of the month, we all know that 30th anniversary drop is coming.
There's another secret layer
So-
drop. This is and right in between that is Brothers War, or I guess right after that is Brothers War.
Oh, hey, and there's actually another secret layer drop happening. Like right now, they're leaking card by card every single day, and that's the Extra Life 2022.
Yes.
So we're gonna see that. We don't quite know what's all in that yet. By the time this episode comes out, we might know.
Are you guys
I-
tired of buying Magic cards?
Yeah, guys, it's almost like Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast wants a constant revenue stream.
Yeah.
Like they figured out a way to keep us spending money all the time.
Are we in a capitalist society or something?
I think so.
All right, guys. Well, I think we can hop off the soapbox. That is it for the Ristic update today. Let's get into our main discussion. I am bringing my deck to the table. This is my baby. This is what I've been working on for a year, 2 years at this point. It's
Seems
actually
like it's been a long time.
it's kind of ridiculous because I hop around a lot on decks, and the fact that this is still together is kind of crazy.
So I'm looking at this deck list. This is like a casual 5/6 deck.
Super
is that
low
what we're
power.
doing?
We're calling this Battle Cruiser.
Mm-hmm.
We're just joking. This is my tournament deck. So this is a CDH deck.
If you guys aren't interested in CDH, I don't think there's you're going to get a lot of useful information just by listening to
don't
this.
get loud. We're not a CDH podcast. We're not a casual only podcast.
Don't be deterred. This is actually going to be super entertaining because you're going to be hearing about strategies that
that's more than anything. What we care about is just good strategies, good deck building, kind of good deck gameplay philosophy. That's what we like.
I mean, cEDH isn't gatekeeping. It's not all combos and infinite. It's just people doing everything they can to win. Games are interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've
like
said
there are
for-
things that translate to whatever your pod is doing.
Yeah, exactly. And everything, it just curates the game you're looking to play instead of, just it being you walk into Commander Night and it's just you're rolling the dice on what you're about to play. Like, if you're playing cEDH, you know exactly what you're getting. And honestly, that is what I love about it.
Yeah, I've said that for forever. It's like cEDH is a mentality. It's not necessarily like the cards you bring to the table. It's about how you're playing the cards and how you're interacting with the table.
Exactly. Okay, so let me tell you guys about this deck. This is my Grixis Malcolm deck. I call it that because it is Malcolm and Vial Smasher partners, and I really never ever play Vial Smasher. So it is my Grixis Malcolm deck. It does a lot of Grixis-y things, but I think it's a lot more interesting than just that, ? You guys can determine that.
I'm Ron Burgundy.
So let's start off like very simple, and we'll kind of get a little more granular as we go, and you guys feel free to ask me questions and chime in. Let's start with win conditions, how this deck wins the game. When you're looking at a deck like this, it kind of looks overwhelming, or you look like you're not going in any direction. Okay, so how do we win the game here? Most obviously, Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, Tainted Back. We all know this.
It's a fringe strategy.
Exactly. It is the most efficient win condition in the entire format, and so if you're playing the colors in a competitive sense, you're probably going to be playing this combo. That makes sense. Other than that, Malcolm has this fantastic one-card win condition called Glinthorn Buccaneer. It is absolutely ridiculous that they printed this in the same set. No, they're not in the same set. Okay. That's a little better.
Yep, core 20.
Core 20.
Very cheap card, though.
Still a very cheap card. $4 for the foil is ridiculous. Anyway, if you guys don't know, Malcolm says, whenever one or more pirates you control deal damage, not combat damage to your opponent, you create a treasure token for each opponent dealt damage. Glinthorn Buccaneer, it's 1 red for 2/4. Haste, whenever you discard a card, it deals 1 damage to each opponent, which then would subsequently have Malcolm see that, and you would make 3 treasures for that 1 ability triggering. It has an activated ability, Glinthorn, of 1 red, discard a card, draw a card. You can only activate this if Glinthorn is attacking. So if you are able to go to combat step, you can do it the turn you cast Glinthorn, because he has haste, which is phenomenal. You'll attack, and then at any given point after you've attacked, since you've declared him attacker, before damage, before blockers, after damage, whatever you want, you can activate this ability. Once you activate this ability and Malcolm's on the battlefield and you have 3 opponents, you essentially win the game. You get to hit everybody for 3, make 3 treasures, and then use 2 of those 3 treasures to activate the ability and go again. And you'll essentially do this as long as you have enough cards to hit everybody that many times, which is only going to take maximum 40. You're going to win the game. So that is awesome that you have a 3 mana commander and you have a 3 mana win condition that's also pirate in your deck. Other than that, the other win condition is going to be an Underworld Breach line that also uses Thassa's Oracle. We like to layer our combos so that we don't have a bunch of dead pieces in our hand. And that main win condition looks like Underworld Breach with a Lion's Eye Diamond and either a Brain Freeze or a Wheel of Fortune. The thought being there that the Lion's Eye Diamond helps you pay for one of those 2 spells, and that they will continue to fill up your graveyard while you continue getting to fill your graveyard with your deck and then getting to cast any of those spells you happen to run across at that point. Usually, the goal is to just do enough times to make enough mana to mill yourself out and then cast Thassa's Oracle, or alternatively, make enough mana and then wheel or mill everybody else out and then just pass the turn and let them lose. So you have the flexibility there. If Thassa's Oracle gets exiled or something like that, there's still options for winning. You can just brain freeze everybody else instead of yourself. I find more often than not, I just brain freeze myself. Okay, so those are my main 3 ways of winning this game. Do we have any questions there? That is pretty much straightforward Grixis bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole shell around this, like making all that stuff work, which is where we're going to get into like the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I don't care to really talk too much about what a Kess deck looks like. Like, if you want to go see what Kess is, it's been doing Kess for 10 years at this point. You just add Underworld Breach and some stuff.
I actually do have a question.
Okay.
While we're on Thoracle, is there a reason you're not running Praetor's Grasp?
That is a great question.
I mean, because, for people who don't understand that, typically you're just going to want to grab your opponent's Thassa's Oracle for whatever reason, if yours is unavailable, or it's like tutoring, because in cEDH, a lot of your opponents will also be running Thoracle.
Right.
And you just have access to it, and that card, Praetor's Grasp, will either grab their pieces, meaning that they can't go off with the Thoracle combo, and also enabling your own. Do you have a specific reason you're not running that?
That is a great question. I think part of it is just space. Okay. And I like to really prioritize my efficient low mana tutors. So
I have a follow up then.
Okay, hit me.
You're running Imperial Recruiter.
I am running Imperial Recruiter,
which costs 3 mana.
Mm-hmm. The same as
Praetor's
Grasp.
And it has 6 viable targets in your deck.
Yes.
None of which.
Wow, you've studied this like.
Only one of which is actually one of your win cons.
2 of which it grabs Glinthorn Buccaneer and it grabs Thassa's Oracle.
But if you're playing Grixis and you have access to black and blue as well, I feel like if it only has 6 viable targets in this deck, there are more efficient tutors that you have access to. You could just run Grim Tutor in that spot and grab whatever you want, or you can throw the Praetor's Grasp in there and grab whatever you want out of your opponent's decks.
There is the utility of Praetor's Grasp completely kneecapping some of these like higher tier meta decks. Like right now, we're seeing Rocco hit like top tables and stuff. And if you Praetor's Grasp a Rocco deck and you just take their Kiki Jiki, they're just done.
Yep.
They're done. You take their Karmic Guide, bye. Like,
you know, it's a food chain deck. Yeah, you just take out whatever combo piece.
Jordan, just thank me at the final table.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you at all. And Grim Tutor was pretty much my 101st card. So yeah, I will definitely consider that for sure. Now,
you can borrow mine.
Ooh, word. Right now my tutor package looks like I have a Demonic Tutor, a Diabolic Intent, a Gamble, an Imperial Seal.
You got the Wish Claw in there.
And a Wish Claw. I'm pretty sure. And then the Imperial.
Take the Wish Claw out.
I mean, there's something to be said about taking Wish Claw out and then putting in one of those 2 cards. I don't disagree with that at all. I will say the upside of Wish Claw is getting to do that, like we talked about last night, is that 1 mana on your next turn. So you play it for 2, and you don't try to activate it that turn. You pass the turn, and then next turn it costs 1 generic for you to find your other combo piece and win the game.
Yeah, I really don't have ground for like taking Wish Claw out because like after we talked about it yesterday, it was like I was like, it's slow, it's 3 mana or whatever, and you can only activate it during your turn. But it doesn't say you can only activate it at sorcery speed. It says you can activate it only during your turn. So like Jordan made a really strong case for it by saying like, well, imagine if it's just sitting there, right? And then you're having a counter battle with somebody else at the table, or like someone's interacting with you. You can just pay the 1, go get the card you need for it, give it to someone who's just not doing that well.
There's always a dud at the table.
Yeah, there's always a dud. So like you hit the
and if you don't know who it is, it's you.
And so like when he made that case, I was just like, gee,
yeah, I mean,
might want to keep Wish Claw in.
Yeah, think of it as like a pseudo Ranger Captain of Eos, right? Like you use it on your turn, or you have it on there on your turn. You say you don't need it to find your combo piece. You just go to attempt your win on your turn anyway. Someone decides to interact. You're like, all right, well, I have the mana up. I'll go get a Force of Will, and I'll counter it for no mana, and then just keep on going. It's essentially like just another form of interaction there. Yeah,
Wish Claw is printed with a downside right on there, but I think that's a misdirect because it is, as we're talking about it, it's pretty much all upside. You know,
it has a lot of hidden upside. I'll throw another one at you. The amount of times I've given it to another person and then used that tutor to get a dockside, and that additional treasure was all I needed to win the game. It has been more than once where that has happened.
Yeah, so looking back at this, I think like when Ritter was like saying that like you can take this Imperial Recruiter out, I actually firmly stand by that now. I think you can take the Imp Recruiter out and just go for something that's going to pick anything you need.
I don't disagree with that. I think if I was going to do anything, Imp Recruiter comes out and I put Grim Tutor in, just because I'm running Dark Writ and Culling the Weak, which is just 2 black rituals, which would be easy enough to resolve a tutor off of.
Like I know you've been playing like you've been at least dabbling more in like creature-based shells and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so like now, like this is definitely not that.
Right.
Mostly
my thought here with the Imp Recruiter is it allows me to play like through like a Deafening Silence, so I can Imp Recruiter, grab Glinthorn Buccaneer, and then my entire win condition is creature-based from there on out.
I would say the most common stacks piece is probably Deafening Silence.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for that turn 1 drop to like slow the table down.
Yeah. So there is some upside to it being a creature. Also, having a certain density of creatures is nice because, like I said, I'm playing effects like Calling the Weak, and I need a sacrifice outlet. I need to have a Diabolic Intent in here, so having a few is good. But I definitely see Grim Tutor being a pretty solid addition. Plus, it has that really sick artwork that you showed me. And
oh my god, that secret lair!
I really want it.
Oh boy.
Well, what's the potential of having, because you're talking about like Calling the Weak and like using like having creatures available? What percentage of games do you think you have Malcolm out on turn 1 or turn 2?
But turn 1 or 2?
Yeah.
99% of the game.
Yeah. So
I mulligan until I have a turn 1 or turn 2 Malcolm interaction and a draw engine or a payoff.
Right.
Essentially, like I either need a tutor to get a win condition, or I have a Malcolm with a Fierce Guardianship. Like if I have Fierce Guardianship Jeweled Lotus opening hand, that's a very strong start, especially if I have any kind of payoff after that. You do have to be mindful of trap hands, and it's taken me a lot of playtesting to be like, yeah, I have a lot of fast mana, and I got Malcolm out, and maybe I have one counterspell, but I'm not going anywhere. And once you have Malcolm out and you're just dead in the water, like it's not really. So that is actually why
I feel that.
Yeah. So more of talking about like kind of the history of this deck, I've changed it pretty significantly. This was much more pirate focused, much more creature focused. I would say it was not nearly as powerful as it is now. But it did have a lot of great synergies and a lot of great combos. It played a little bit more like a mid-range deck because of that. You know, I'm not running Grim Hireling anymore. I'm not running Professional Facebreaker anymore.
My favorite variant was the first variant.
I know.
Yeah. Like, what where did it start? Like, when you built this and you started, like, what were you like? What was your first mindset? I know you wanted like that Glinthorn Buccaneer like combo line.
Yeah.
And we were not necessarily cEDH players or like pursuing tournament play.
Right.
You know, so like this
we
was
were still firmly in like the mid to high.
We were just optimizing decks.
Yeah, we're just optimizers inherently. That's why we got here.
Yeah, I remember sitting at Phoenix and you bust that deck out for the first time and it was just sitting there.
It popped off.
Yeah, it popped off and we lost 3 games in a row to it. Because we were just like...
I went undefeated that night. I forgot.
We were just sitting there like, okay, I guess we're going home and we're looking at deck list because that can't happen again.
Yeah, so that is how it started. It was more of a high-powered deck. It was a lot of fun. I love Maskwood Nexus. It's a freaking awesome card, and at the same time, I also love Pyre of Heroes. I really think breaking creature typing is a relevant strategy.
It's the future of the game.
And we've been talking about it a lot. I think creature typing will become more and more and more relevant. That'll be a whole different
Give
topic.
party enough payoffs, and Maskwood Nexus becomes very, very good.
Exactly. And like if you just think about Maskwood Nexus long enough, you'll be like, holy shit, does it do some work?
I think I'm sitting on 4 borderless foil copies
Yeah.
because I'm just like, this is definitely an investment piece.
Right. So yeah, pretty much I was calling it Curious Pirates because there wasn't a ton of pirates, there was enough, but then everything else that wasn't a pirate became a pirate via Maskwood Nexus.
This current list that you're running, and people will be able to find this deck on Moxfield, and we'll have a link below.
Yep.
You're currently running 3 pirate payoffs, one of which is Dockside. So you're running 2 pirate payoffs, Glinthorn Buccaneer and Ragavan, which honestly is enough.
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of the point I got to is I probably had maybe 16, 18 creatures when I first had this deck, and it is now 11 creatures. And
Yeah, you're
like you said,
increasing the density of quality cards. There,
exactly.
taking pirates out.
Exactly, like as we've, like you said, Evan, we're optimizing, and what I found is, it's hard to cut the cute cards, especially when you love those cool strategies, but like when you're trying to build a competitive deck, you need to just maximize card quality a lot of the time. And
You might not even have room for your 1 pet card in a deck.
honestly, like
Yeah.
I find myself cutting pet cards all the time.
That Professional Facebreaker is not in this deck.
It's not in this deck. I've been swearing up and down that people need to be playing Dress Down more and more. Not in this deck.
Mentally, it's just really hard to like create that separation. Like, I know that there are a lot of people out there who've like built decks and they've like won in ways that they love to see it, or like that were surprising. And so like when you're optimizing a deck and you see the way that you won before and it was because of this one specific card, it may be cute, it may be like synergistic in some way and powerful in other ways.
Yep.
But like when you're optimizing, it's just like you gotta cut it. Like when I'm like cutting like when I was building Zakama, just like cutting out like the mana doublers like breaks my heart because there were so many times when I flashed in a Dictate of Karametra on the end step and then won the game because I had enough mana to cast a Zakama and go infinite.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, that's great,
It's
but
fun.
It's fun.
Yeah, but like exactly. Like I think a card that was in the original list that's a good example of that is Trickery Charm. It stayed in so long, and we love Trickery Charm. It lets you change the creature typing of a creature. So I was running Mayhem Devil, and I was running Reckless Fireweaver. And so once you turn either of those into a pirate, and then you get their trigger one time with Malcolm, they go infinite, just making treasures and pinging.
Kill the board, yeah.
Kill the board. And so there was just tons of things like that where you got these really weird layered combos, and that was the second card that would change of typing other than Maskwood Nexus.
If I'm casting my vote, that is my favorite variant.
It was really fun because you had all these different things and all these different strategies. Like I had a Magda line that would allow me to grab Niv Mizzet, and so I was playing Curiosity, and then I could, I have Vial Smasher in the command zone, so put a Curiosity on that, put a Curiosity on Niv Mizzet, put a Curiosity on Glinthorn Buccaneer.
You created so many treasures with this shell of pirates creating just inherent value, and then all of a sudden Magda hits the
Magda's
board.
amazing.
You sacrifice 5 treasures, you go get the Maskwood Nexus, and then you can go search your library for anything.
Yeah, so pretty much 10 treasures, and I could win the game because I would go, as long as I had Malcolm out, I would go Maskwood Nexus, and I would go, then you can get any creature because it said, Magda says sacrifice 5 creatures, go get a dragon. Well, now every creature in your deck is a dragon thanks to Maskwood Nexus. So you just go
Mayhem Devil or some shit.
Go get Mayhem Devil, and then sacrifice something, and you win the game.
This is a good example of how you can take this shell and just go up and down the power level for whatever your pod is.
Totally.
And there's so many different strategies within this.
Yep.
I know there's probably another episode somewhere here in the works about like power level and like what does 1 mean, what does 2 mean, and like all the way up to 10.
Means nothing.
It means nothing.
It's jank, it's cEDH, and it's everything in between. And what you're going to play is based on the conversation you should be having with your pod before the game.
Like, got to curate your group, otherwise it doesn't go well that much.
If I'm sitting here in low and I'm like to give this a number, I'd probably say it's a 7.
Yeah. What the?
Oh yeah, there's a list right here. There's a 7.
Pretty much all the time it's a 7.
Yeah.
So that is kind of the general consensus. We talked about kind of the original deck and how we've kind of grown. This is a much more nasty Grixis list. So instead of prioritizing those weird pirate synergy combos, we're a Grixis list. We win with ad nauseum. I guess I should have talked about in the win conditions. It's not exactly how we win, but you win the game when you cast ad nauseum. So we have ad nause and we have Pure into the Abyss to let us draw a billion cards and usually win the second we resolve.
Could you imagine just casting one of those cards for just no reason, just for funsies?
I cast Agnos just so I can draw 4 cards.
Yeah. Can you imagine the amount of times you sit down in a casual pod and they're like, "Oh, you have Adnos in this deck, but I just cast it for value."
Yeah. I mean, they don't even know to like quantify it. They're just like, "Yeah, I'm just running Adnos," and it's like flips an 8 drop. Like,
yeah, I'll take it. I'll pick it up.
There's a lot of real good cards in here, but I am an idiot, so let's drop that power level down to like 6.
But you've taken this to like a different level, and I think that like earlier we were talking about like this being more your deck than it ever has been before. Like you feel more comfortable with this than you were before, because I remember we played at Marchesa, and the thing was is that this was just Grixis nonsense, and it just had every good Grixis card, and we weren't like.
But I didn't
like winning games. You did win a game, but it's like it wasn't playing out the way that you felt was true to you as a player.
Yeah, and it was clunky. It was clunky because like we said, I still had some holdouts. I still had some pet cards from the original build when we went to Marchesa, and I had the
Siren Storm Tamer.
Siren Storm Tamer literally just came out of the list. Decided not good enough because it's not. But yeah, so that version was just a lot more. All right, screw all the pirates. We're just gonna do ad nauseum and kind of focus that. But at the same, I guess not screw all the pirates. I had enough to like, I had enough chunkers. I think I was running like, Wandering Archaic, and I was running Grim Hireling and stuff. So just like way too much high CMC stuff.
Well, the dual purpose was that like Siren Storm Tamer was going to be a mana dork, because you still had that like percentage of getting Malcolm out like 90% of the time.
Right, and you get to protect your Malcolm, you get to protect your Glinthorn. Yeah. But really, when it comes down to it, Siren Storm Tamer is a mana dork that taps to make a treasure and has a blue activated ability that is not that good. I'd rather play a counter spell.
Yeah.
So the one thing I want to bring up is wheels. There's a whole episode here to talk about at some point, but wheels were great for a long time, and now it seems like everybody thinks wheels are terrible.
Giving people cards is bad.
I mean, there's decks that wheel to wheel. You are wheeling for a purpose here.
Yes, there's decks that just chaos wheel. There's decks and there's players that just don't know when to properly wheel, and so they just wheel even though everybody just dumped their hands out with fast mana, and now they get to just have 7 new cards. But this deck strives to leverage that tactfully, and the reason I've circled back to wheels is because I'm playing a Grixis list, and I have no card draw in the command zone. I have no card draw in the command zone, so I need to make sure I'm getting card draw elsewhere.
And you really don't have like a big mass of cantrips in this list.
I don't have a big mass of cantrips because, again, we're looking for card quality.
Yeah.
So I run So this segment, I guess, or this section, I'll call card quote unquote velocity. Some people do not like that phrase. I term that as just kind of the speed at which you're seeing your deck. Evan says I go through my deck a lot when we play, and that's true.
I envision you as a Nicolas Cage and Gone in 60 Seconds.
Yeah, that's the pot calling the kettle black. Evan, who sees 30 cards every turn in every single one of his decks.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, so as far as cantrips, Ritter, I'm really looking at Brainstorm, Ponder, and we can call Gitax and Probe a cantrip as well.
We had a discussion of this off mic too. That Dark Confident that you're running might as well be a Ponder or something else. You're gonna get so much more value.
Exactly.
Else.
I mean, that's at the top of my list. If you're like, I'm like, because you're playing Adnons, just losing life to that. Like, I'd be like, oh, Dark Confidant, you can maybe like find something different. But like, I understand it too, because it is the card draw that you need.
Right.
It's the lifeblood of your deck to like, you need to see more.
Right. I don't disagree with you that you know it does technically make your ad-nauseam less effective, but at the same time, I've also heard Dark Confidant referred to as a slow ad nauseum because it is the same effect. You're revealing a card losing the life. So if my deck is already built around it and has such a low CMC as to where that's not really impactful, it just allows me to, if I can turn one a Dark Confidant, it just gives me another draw source.
You've heard of sad nauseum. Now we have slad nauseum.
Slad nauseum? We're taking that out. Please edit that out.
Yeah, and the reason you're not playing something like Necropotence in this deck is a combination of too slow, and then you also want your graveyard.
That's a great question. And some lists do play Necropotence. Some lists go hard and not only do that, but they also play Bolus of Citadel, which I don't think is the right move. The reason I'm not playing Necropotence here is because I really like winning with Underworld Breach. I think it's an incredible line, and I think
it just turns into a non-bow.
It turns into a non-bow. You know, you have to discard every card into exile. All of a sudden, I'm running a wheel package that if I at any point use that and then cast a wheel, all of those are going into exile. So yeah, I don't run it. I don't have the spot for Final Fortune to also try and get that extra turn after the discard step. So no, I don't run it. I really like Underworld Breach, and I don't think Yawgmoth's Will is good enough to run as a card anymore. So that means it's one less graveyard recursive piece that I have. Mm-hmm. So I really need to prioritize that Underworld Breach is a very good graveyard strategy.
And you're also not running Faithless.
Faithless Looting? No, I am not.
Not good enough. Not
I
good
don't
enough
think.
anymore.
I don't think, as far as a card, it is good enough for this deck. So as far as the rest of the card velocity package, we talked about Dark Confidant. I'm playing Ledger Shredder. I'm considering these card velocity. Ledger Shredder, you don't get card advantage, right? You're discarding that card. That being said, I am playing my graveyard pretty heavily, so it may be some form of card advantage. It does fuel my...
You kind of have those cards in your hand.
Yeah, and it fuels, the cost for Underworld Breach, so
Yeah.
the Exile 3, so that's pretty nice too.
I mean, it's
Graveyard matters. It doesn't necessarily turn off your deck if you get Tormod scripted, but Graveyard matters.
Graveyard matters in the...
Counterintuitive graveyard deck.
Yes, just because, I'm wheeling, so that's 7 cards immediately in the graveyard, stuff like that.
I mean, it's a 2-mana investment that is passively like allowing you to see more cards.
Exactly, and that's why I have both.
And
I thought...
getting bigger and pressuring other players who are using their life total as a resource.
Right.
Like
That
Yeah.
card's worth a lot of money for a reason.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
potential it can come around and it's like a 6, like a 6/8 or like a 5/7 the first turn you're able to attack with it.
Right. And there's just a lot of times where like I can get outraced, right? I can get outraced by a faster deck, a faster combo deck, like if even Grixis, there's Rograk Silas, which is significantly faster than my deck.
I mean, that's a relevant consideration for you, the speed of this deck, because this deck wants to be all gas. So
True,
what
true.
happens when you face up against a deck that's faster?
Exactly. Well, then I have to pivot to my, albeit fairly small, mid-range strategy. But resolving a card advantage engine like Dark Confidant, or getting a wheel plus a payoff, or getting a heuristic study, these are things that allow me to use my interaction not to resolve my combo piece, but instead to stop another combo piece. Although I will say in this deck that is less than ideal.
Do you have a fully thought out mid-range plan, or do you just have pieces that work in that shell if you need to pivot?
Good question. So step one when I'm looking at a hand is find my win condition or find my turn 1 Malcolm and a payoff.
Mm-hmm. And actually, before we get into this, I have a follow-up question
Yeah.
to that. Are you sitting down at the table looking at the other commanders and going, oh shit, I can't just go with my foot on the gas right now.
You can't
have
go
to.
burr.
Yeah. It does help decide like your first hand. Is to like when everyone reveals their commanders and what they're playing, and you see the colors. I mean, once you're like, I don't know, in the in cEDH mentality, and you start studying decks and like their play styles and all these different things, you're going to be like looking at a commander and just sort of assessing what like the pool of cards that commander can draw from. What are the possibilities of it like competing with me, and what can it use to like affect me? So like when you keep a starting hand against what you know is to be a traditionally like stacks heavy deck, it's going to change like the way that you're going to like perceive your starting hand.
Yeah.
Well, what more I'm getting at is what are the commanders that you see when you sit down with this Malcolm list where you go, oh shit, I'm not the beatdown. I'm gonna have to play a mid-range game.
You gotta sit back a little bit.
Yeah.
If I see like a Rogue Silas, I'm pretty aware of something like that. Pretty much fast combo decks, like Stick Fingers or something like that. It's just or like Godo. It's just anything that's like get a ton of mana, drop your combo piece, and it's super easy to assemble. Like I'm always worried about that.
Like it's not a deck that's explosive; it's a deck that's nuclear.
Yeah.
They're just trying to assemble one.
Right. And on the other hand, I also have to be really wary of cards or decks that mid-range better than me, which is pretty much all of them. So if I don't win by turn 2, we're getting into the mid game, and a lot of other decks will do that significantly better than I can do that. So to kind of answer your question, Ritter, my mid-range strategy, if you want to call it that, is what I'm calling the Wheel Thief package of this deck. So it is a wheel plus a payoff. This way, it allows me to go fast and look for a fast hand, right? So I'm always looking for just tons of gas up front, hopefully getting a turn 1 Malcolm, hopefully getting, a payoff or a tutor. But if I can dump my hand and resolve a wheel turn 1 or 2, I pretty much have disrupted 3 opponents without having to cast any interactive spells.
While also supporting your game plan.
While also supporting my game plan, while also getting me closer to my combo pieces, while also filling my graveyard for Underworld Breach, and while also drawing more interaction to either ensure that I win when I try and go off, or to keep my hand full of counterspells if I'm at a pod that's very aggressive and trying to beat me to the win.
Yeah, your mid-game strategy with like any wheel, you put any wheel into the graveyard, and like let's say you discard your hand and you end up rolling into an Underworld Breach, like that, there it is.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, Wheel
boom.
of Fortune combos with LED and Underworld Breach. So casting a Wheel of Fortune early game and then being like, all right, hey, I just drew my LED Underworld Breach. There we go. Like, this stuff happens literally all the time. Like, and the upside of playing such a high card quality with wheels is that when you draw 7 cards, it's probably a pretty impactful hand. And that's kind of the goal, is I don't want to like wheel into a ton of cantrips and stuff that's just kind of garbage. So I'd say for my payoff for the Wheel Thief strategy is just something that lets you get added advantage on top of the wheel, because we need to be mindful that wheels are something that benefit everybody. And it's really bad to give your opponents a ton of cards.
You've told me that for years. Like ever since I built that Xeris deck, you've just been like a broken record saying like, don't give your opponents cards. It's bad. And
guys, the blue wheel is literally called Windfall.
yeah.
Yes.
It's right there.
Literally.
Yeah.
So I don't run Wheel of Misfortune, but I pretty much run all the other good ones, save for Time Twister.
Wheel of Misfortune is not good.
It's not good.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
We saw it in this week's game Rewind.
Well, not just based on that, but it's a budget wheel alternative. If you can afford the other wheels, it's like 5th in line.
And I'm also on ad nauseum, so I'm not really interested to start gambling my life away for that.
We literally saw the worst outcome possible for Wheel of Fortune this last week, and I had cast it and paid life equal to Jordan's life total, so you couldn't pay more. And then him and Chris paid the same amount, so no one wheeled except for me.
I think the worst outcome is that we all bet the same amount, and that way we lose that much life, and then nobody wheels.
Hey, that is
I
the
think
worst
that is the
possible.
max.
Okay,
We have
that's
something
the
to
worst
shoot for in the
possible.
next game.
Believe it or not, this card does get worse than that. So I'm running 3 wheels: Whispering Madness, Windfall, and Wheel of Fortune. I think that's more than enough, but the payoffs I'm running for them, the most well-known ones are Notion Thief and Narset. Both saying that Narset says each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn, so if you were to wheel on your turn, they would all draw 1 card, and then you would draw the rest, or you draw the 7. And then the other payoff is Notion Thief. If an opponent would draw a card except for the first one he or she draws in each of his or her draw steps, instead that player skips that draw and you draw a card. So this one says they draw 0 cards. And you get,
hate to see that Notion Thief drop against you.
Yeah. So
I mean, this is why Hull Breacher was banned.
yeah,
Like,
exactly.
And Notion Thief is just worse enough, just slightly worse enough, to not be banned.
Right.
In 2 colors, no extra abilities.
Yeah.
Yes, I feel like pre-Commander Legends, everybody was like, wheels are dope, and then Hull Breacher came out, and everybody's like, wheels are really dope.
Yeah.
And then Hull Breacher got banned, and everybody's like, wheels are terrible.
Yeah, wheels are bad because the best piece that was ever made for wheels is gone.
Yeah, so I was like, it was still a viable strategy before it. I think
Yeah.
we can still find some room to fit these cards in.
Well, we're starting to see like decks pop up at tournaments that are like older strategies that are just happening, like they sneak through to the final table. So
this could be my little old school package that I'm setting.
I absolutely love this. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like I said, I'm dumping my hand, so I need to refill, and like I've just accepted the fact that resolving a Heuristic Study is not enough to keep me in the game when I have 2 cards left.
Yeah, and there's newer cards that come out that like add to this wheel package. Like we talked a little bit about like Dothy, how like inherently it just sits there and collects a lot of cards. You know?
Yes, that is
so much better than that.
This is, I think nobody's talking about this, but I think Dothy Voidwalker is the new GOAT wheel payoff, because Dothy is just incredible by itself. But then if you wheel with Dothy out, you're exiling every single card your opponents are losing, and now you have access to all of them.
And your stuff goes to the grave still, right?
Your stuff still goes to the grave, so you're essentially filling your graveyard, filling your hand, and filling the exile with up to maybe 21 cards that you now have access to.
Dothy is all upside. If you are in black mana, you should be playing it.
Absolutely insane.
So it's casting. You're casting that spell from exile without paying any mana. First of all, you can do it at instant speed, right?
Yep.
It has shadow. It's a 3/2 shadow creature.
Yep.
Like all upside.
It is.
It's a
incredible
rogue.
Yeah, currently it's only $10, and so
Yeah,
it's like
it is
one of the
absolutely-
cheapest pickups.
Absolutely ludicrous. So yeah, those are my 3 cards where it's just, if I have that out and I resolve a wheel, I feel like I'm in a very commanding position in that game. And then you said something in a previous episode, Chris. It's just like, keep your win as simple as possible, and that way everything else is just supporting your strategy.
Well, we were talking about off mic about how Party doesn't have good enough payoffs yet, and you're investing 5 cards at a minimum for a mediocre payoff.
Right.
And that's why Party's not good enough.
And the best payoff is Coveted Prize, and that like we see how good that is when it happens, and when it resolves, it just you read the card, and inherently you're just like, I have to have 4 creatures on the board too,
But if you keep things simple, where your win con is 1 or 2 or 3 cards with redundancy, and none of them are dead when you draw them without the combo pieces, that's money.
Exactly.
That's where you want to be.
That leads to that extremely high card quality.
No wombo combo.
No wombo combo. Yeah, I gotta say, I absolutely love this deck. Looking at this list right now, it feels really clean. Because I'm running wheels again, I have added 2 reanimation spells. I've added Reanimate, which gets a creature from any graveyard, and I've grabbed Unearth. Unearth only gets from my graveyard in CMC 3 or less.
I was going to say how sexy that Unearth is. When I saw it in your list, I was just like, wow, that is
Feels good,
so
right?
good.
Feels good.
Yeah.
Notably, it grabs Thassa's Oracle out of my graveyard. It grabs
the only thing
Glinthorn out of my graveyard.
It does everything except for Notion Thief in your graveyard.
Yes, and so it even helps. It gives me this redundancy, or I guess I would say more of like this like safety net with wheeling. And I just like, all right, I have a Glinthorn and a Wheel of Fortune in my hand. It's like, all right, I'll wheel it away. And I now have 2 cards I know in my deck, and I have plenty of tutors to also find those cards, that if I draw one of them, I can go get my Reanimate spell and get actually a discount on my Glinthorn instead of casting for the 1 red.
And the creature doesn't even come in tapped, which is actually a big thing. A lot of these effects will say like the creature comes in tapped, but this is just like, nope, this comes to the battlefield. Like you're actually saving mana.
Yeah,
by,
it's
like,
actually
wheeling
insane.
the Glinthorn to the grave and then picking up an Unearth.
Yep, and I will say the added upside, shout out to Comedian MTG for turning me into this one, but getting 2 reanimation spells in this deck enables a whole new intuition pile, because now in this deck specifically, if you have Malcolm out and you just resolve an intuition, your 3 cards are Glinthorn, Reanimate, and Unearth, and now they have no option but to give you Glinthorn essentially.
Yeah, because you're going to get the cheaper.
Yes.
Yeah.
And not for nothing, in this deck, it might be worthwhile to recur Dothy Voidwalker, because that is a sacrifice ability to grab that card from
Exactly.
exile.
There's plenty of
It might be
value plays
worthwhile
with these
to
pieces.
get a Dockside again and get a whole bunch of treasures if your mana's short.
Yep. I'm
If
playing
that-
enough sacrifice outlets that if you have a Dockside, you kill it. You can even, Diabolic Intent, sacrifice it, go get the Reanimate spell, get the Dockside back. Like there's tons of value plays to be done with these cards outside of just actively winning the game. And I think that just speaks to the high card quality.
Yeah, let's just look at this. You only have one creature that is over 3 CMC or CMV. One creature that is more than 3 mana, and that is like the Notion Thief. So
that is Notion Thief.
Yeah, so any creature, basically any creature that's in your deck is going to be hit by this. And like one creature in particular that we've had a lot of discussion about is Gilded Drake. Like you can Gilded Drake somebody through an Unearth. Like that's actually pretty hot.
Reanimate the Gilded
That's actually
Drake.
pretty hot.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. So yeah, you literally reanimate anything except for the Notion Thief with that, which is fantastic. Yeah, so in my removal package that I wanted to chat about, I'm not going to talk about everything, but the two I'm really prioritizing right now, is March of Swirling Mist and Gilded Drake. I'll talk about Gilded Drake first because that's what you brought up. Gilded Drake is fantastic. I feel like people are playing it less and less and less and less and less as we go along. I don't really understand why. I do get that it's kind of like almost like an incestuous meta card because it's just Gilded Drake is better when everybody's playing Gilded Drake. It feels like you need to have a Gilded Drake in your deck when your entire table is playing Gilded Drake. Otherwise, you're going to lose your commander and never get it back. So I've seen plenty of like Gilded Drake wars where someone casts a Najeela, someone Gilded Drakes a Najeela. Next turn they Gilded Drake it back. That being said, I think there's still plenty of instances where it's just one disrupts somebody's whole game plan with a 2-drop card. You grab their commander, you grab a Winota, you grab whatever. But on top of that, grabbing a Hate Bear and leveraging that into your to your advantage, or just at the very least.
Yeah, there's enough stacks pieces that read your opponents.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like an asymmetrical stacks piece. So notably, Evan, help me out here.
I can't even think. I'm trying to think of the name as you're
talking.
Oh
my
and
goodness!
Honestly, I cannot.
We were literally just discussing this. I'm in
creatures and lands your opponent control enter the battlefield tapped.
No.
Pretty common tag.
Opponents.
Drannith Magistrate.
Yeah,
oh my goodness!
I'm like, is it Dothy?
Do we even play cEDH? Okay. Literally, this happened like a few weeks ago. I Gilded Draked Evan's
Dothy.
Drannith Magistrate.
Yeah, Drannith. Yeah.
And what an awesome feeling that was.
I mean,
because I was popping off. I was literally ready to go into my turn and combo win. Like Zakama was ready to go and like for the loop, and he saw that and just Gilded Drake the
not
away.
Only did I stop the stacks piece from hurting me, I kept it on the table to continue pinning down my other 2 opponents, and then I've used it to pin down the opponent that played it. I think it is fantastic. That might be peak upside for this card. But I think there's plenty of like grab somebody's Crom. All of a sudden you have a card advantage engine, right?
Well, you're playing white. If you see someone at the table is playing white, they're gonna have a Drannith in their deck.
Yeah,
like that's just it.
Yep,
that's how good it is.
Even if you can't like say it's a not asymmetrical like a Collector Oof. There's plenty of times where I could Gilded Drake a Collector Oof and then sacrifice it to an effect that is fairly easy for me to do. So I am still hot on Gilded Drake. Time will tell if it stays on the list, but I think it's there. I
feel like it has a place in there, especially just for getting your commander back. You don't have in 3 colors. You don't have the extra space in your mana package for Homeward Path.
Right.
So
literally, yeah,
it's worth it.
So the one thing I want to kind of talk about with all this interaction stuff, yes, this does just look like a really Grixis list, but everything is kind of curated in mind with what our game plan is trying to be here, which is resolve one of these combo spells that wins me the game, or dump a ton of mana and get a wheel. Those are pretty much my 2 play patterns. So all of my interaction is really like, I need to make sure that my spells are resolving. I really am going to have a bad time if I sit back and I'm trying to play table police.
You've done it too many times.
I've done it too many times, and it doesn't work. This deck is terrible at it. This deck needs to just try and win, and that's really what I'm focusing. So that's why I'm like, Glinthorn, and that's why I've stuck with Malcolm, honestly, is like, Thassa's Oracle and Demonic Consultation is fantastic, and I feel like Glinthorn Malcolm is just a second 2-card combo, one of which is in my command zone. That makes it just so easy for me to keep offering threats as opposed to me trying to like sit back and find the right time to drop a threat, or make sure that I have everything in the world together so that I know my one time I try and win actually resolves. I would rather just be like, Glinthorn, nope. Okay, Thassa's Oracle, Demonic Consultation, nope.
You have some resiliency built in because you're going to see interaction.
Yep.
And you don't want to have a glass cannon that tries to go off, and if it gets stopped, you have nothing to do for the rest of the game.
Exactly, and then that's why I keep coming back to this wheel package. I think like that mentality of just I want to keep going, I want to keep putting the pressure on my opponents, I want to keep making them have it. I think
disrupt their hands.
And exactly, and then so if they do have it and I'm down to 2 cards, great. You get a wheel out, keep going. Just keep going. Just keep going. That's why I have the reanimation spells too. It just allows me to keep going, and I really think that this is going to make this deck the best it's ever been, is that kind of mentality.
I think I'm a big proponent of, like, the cards that you like, the cards that you're a fan of, you're a better player when you play them,
Totally.
even if they're not optimal. And, like, Jordan, you as a player, you're a player that, like, when you get knocked out of the game, you don't just go, well, I'm knocked out, and you're in bad mood. You are still trying to keep things going and trying to, like, you don't have a win con or an out in this deck, and you'll just keep going sometimes. Like,
I never give up.
Play to your outs.
I've always played your out.
Yeah, play to your outs even if they don't exist.
How many times have we won though? Like when we felt like that, and you kept going. You just kept playing. Like Evan does it all the time.
And this deck is built to do that, to lean into your tendencies as a player.
True.
You know,
maybe like that's what we're talking. Is like it looks like a Grixis deck, but it really thoroughly feels like my deck. Like this feels like a really good personalized deck, and maybe that's why, because it fits my playstyle so well.
Yeah, I think before you were talking about it like being a glass cannon and just not like being this like very personalized, like your very own deck. It was like when I was sitting there watching you, or like sitting at the table with you, like helping you test this deck out, I actually felt like I had a better chance winning when you were trading blows with someone else at the table.
Yeah.
It's like I'm sitting there, I'm just like, yeah, fight him.
Yeah, the amount of times I fought a counter war and then looked at my hand, then look at Evan's hand, and I just felt bad because he just was fine and just kept on doing his thing.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep doing my thing.
Dude. Sweet. So the other removal spell I was talking about, kind of with the namely of executing our game plan, is March of Swirling Mist. I think it is fantastic getting to phase out multiple creatures at once. We're in ad nauseam deck, so we're obviously going to get pressured if people have creatures. That is not insignificant. We always got to be mindful that creatures are just an ever-present growing thing in the meta right now.
This card is slept on.
Yeah, so creatures are combo pieces. Creatures are hate bear stacks pieces. Creatures are just big and going to swing at you. Are any 3 of those an issue for you as a player in a cEDH game? Well, you might want to consider March of Swirling Mist. Getting to phase out multiple things and just kind of shut off whatever is hurting me at the time, and getting to pitch extra cards to do so, I think is huge.
Yeah, the meta is going through this like strange transitional shift where we're starting to see more creature shells like top in like, or at least sit at the final table, and we don't have answers for them. No one's playing sweepers because for the longest time we're like targeted removal. Yep. And while this is still targeted removal, it is like widespread. You actually are choosing what you're getting rid of, so you can like, you don't have to waste this mana. You know, it's very efficient, and I think that's like why I think it's slept on, why it's not played as much as it should be, is that like you don't have to waste resources. And if you're exiling a blue card from your hand to like add that 2 extra, well, like sweet, I guess that's a cherry on top.
Yeah,
you know, it's like use that mana. I guess that's going.
Yeah, I mean, like blue and 1 is not way too much to pay for this, and more often than not, I think that effect is going to be all you need out of this card. Yeah. But then if you want to go ham and phase out 4 things, go for it.
Phasing is just way stronger than I guess like it's given credit for, because it doesn't allow ETB triggers to like happen again too. So like you can take away people's like docksides. Like at instant speed, someone's gonna like try to copy a dockside to like
Fimage the dockside.
Yeah, Fimage the dockside, and it's just like, nope, that dockside's gone. And then when it comes back, nope, you don't get that trigger.
Yep, and I do love playing Dress Down, but I think in this deck, for what this deck is trying to do, I'm not trying to sit back and wait for a Dress Down to be viable. I need a March of Swirling Mist for when I'm trying to win and there's something stopping me.
Right.
So I think that pretty much covers all the main lines, the Reanimator line, the Wheel line. I will say that something I've been seeing lately and a big old fan of is playing City of Traders in addition to Ancient Tomb. So now you have 2 lands that give you the double colorless. One, obviously, just ramp, which is great.
I mean, fast mana is good unconditionally.
Fast mana is
cEDH.
good unconditionally. Let me point out why I think it's so good here. We're in Grixis, so we don't really have any other option for ramp other than artifacts. I am playing one of the talismans. I'm playing Talisman of Dominance as well as Felwar's Stone and Arcane Signet. We can call that as well. These are all 2 colorless mana rocks that now you can play off of a single land, which notably all 3, Felwar's Stone, as long as your opponents have those lands, all 3 of those plus that land will get you a Malcolm, which I think is not anything to scoff at. You could play more. You could play all the talismans if you wanted to. I'm not playing Grim Monolith right now, but that's another 2-drop piece that
That's like an economic consideration, though. You would be playing it if you had one.
honestly, maybe. I've taken it in and out of lists multiple times. I'm currently playing Talisman of Dominance intentionally over Grim Monolith right now. I think this deck rarely needs generic mana like that, short of resolving an ad nauseum, but it's really never been hard to have 5 mana for me ever, and not even using a Grim Monolith. So in this instance, I'm prioritizing Talisman of Dominance, which is a repeatable color source of mana, versus Grim Monolith, which more often than not is just a 3 colorless ritual.
Yeah, one time use.
Rarely are you, unless you're reanimating or voltaic keying it back, you're rarely getting that again. So I'm going to see it. We're testing that out. That is a flex slot right now for sure. But I really think, I need that turn 1 blue source for Malcolm/interaction. And it also gives me black to hit the double pip on Ad Nauseam, the double pip on Dothy, and the triple pip on PETA.
Are there any other cards that are like borderline for you in this build right now that you're like, does this make the cut? Does this not? Like, what are cards 101, 102, 103 right now?
I mean, that's a great question. And what's crazy is like I've had like 4 iterations in this deck that's 20 cards different all the time. So I mean, there are a fair amount I feel flex slots. All the time I feel like Narset Part of Veils is not good enough to be in this deck. Although it is the wheel payoff.
When it's relevant, it's relevant. It's just that.
It's really good, and it's card advantage. You get 2 activations more often than not. And I have run a lot of instants and sorceries, 16 instants, 16 sorceries, 26 instants. So plenty of hits. You're almost always going to hit it off of Narset.
It just so happens to be one of those stacks pieces that people will see it and think they have to kill it immediately. And when you're sitting at a cEDH table, the table does not think that way. The table sees it and they go, yes, this is hurting me, but it might be hurting everyone else a lot more. Until that wheel resolves, I think that's what sends the red flag up, is they see Narset and they immediately think, oh, here comes the wheel. Like, I'm about to lose my hand. I'm not drawing a card for the rest of the game. But I think that like when you're not seeing the wheels, or like when you're just like putting it out as a generic value like stacks piece,
right?
It's like it's really good in that way.
Yeah, I mean, like if I have an opening hand, I have a Narset, and I have very much like a guaranteed cast of Narset, whether it's like a turn 1 Malcolm and that treasure when I attack on turn 2 gives me the second blue pip. I usually keep that hand, like being able to reliably get 2 activations, dig 8 cards deep.
Everyone's trying to see more cards. Everyone's trying to draw more cards.
Exactly. And so I think because, like we were saying earlier, this deck just needs inherent like amount of card velocity to just get me to where I'm going, get me to what I need to see. Narset does that for me, while also being a wheel payoff. Mm-hmm. If it stays, we'll see. We'll see. As other than that, some flex slots. I don't disagree with you at all with Imperial Recruiter. I think Grim Tutor is fantastic, and
I feel like Imperial Recruiter reads a lot like Smothering Tithe, where like if you're in the colors for it, you're like, oh, that's an auto include.
Right.
But there are so many times where I'm like, well, Smothering Tithe just doesn't go in this deck.
Yeah.
And I think that's the situation here.
Very important to recognize those kind of things. I actually agree. I think I want to take that out and do some testing without that.
Well, with this wheel shell too, there's another card that is like rising up and has seen some play, like Mnemonic Betrayal.
Yes.
I know that like,
I'd say this is a flex slot for sure.
Yeah, well, someone who doesn't know what this deck is trying to do might just look at it and be like, oh, that is probably one of your flex slots. It's one of the cards that you're not really like super solid on. Mm-hmm. But when I think about it more, and I think about it more, and I think about it more, it's like the amount of people who are playing Mana Crypts and Mana Vault, and stuff like that. This doesn't say like you can cast instants and sorceries from your opponent's graveyards. It says no, you can cast everything from your opponent's graveyards.
And it's doing a lot of the same things that Praetor's Grasp would be doing in this deck.
Yep.
Maybe your combo got stifled, and you can just grab it from your opponent who also got stifled by interaction.
Yep,
gives you access to like different colors too. So like you can use your treasures to like. Does it allow you to cast things with any mana? It does. You can use any color of mana to like cast these spells. So like you can take things that are like green, and
you might want Carpet of Flowers for or
exactly
something.
You're getting like crazy valued permanents that are just happen to be wheeled to the graveyard. So like like a Carpet of Flowers is great. You can get like
I'm not seeing enough cards. I'll take that Sylvan Library that you removed.
Yeah, I mean there's white that's like going to the graveyard. So like I will cast your Drannith from your graveyard.
Right.
Like I think
take
those
that
are
Drannith.
Like, yeah,
and we're wheeling, right? So like people are keeping good hands in cEDH. Like they're not keeping bad hands.
And the density of card quality quality is high.
Across the board, very,
really
very
high.
So
You'll find a target you like.
Yes, and like you said,
Yes.
Ritter, with Praetor's Grasp, everybody's playing Thassa's Oracle if they can. So if I wheel and I get a Praetor's Grasp, or not Praetor's Grasp, if I get a Thassa's Oracle, or if I get one of the other pieces like the Tainted Pact Demonic Consultation, well then it's really freaking easy for me to assemble that.
Yeah, the
So-
entry price is 1 a blue and a black at sorcery speed, but I don't see that really being a problem because like you're not playing this on turn 2, and there's a lot
This
of
is a
times,
late game play.
Yeah, there's a lot of times on turn 2 in your deck where you're sitting there and you have 6+ mana. So imagine how much mana you have access to
Exactly.
when you're looking at turn 5.
Yeah,
Yep.
and it kind of looks like, looking at your list, you're playing this card over Yawgmoth's Will. Like, this is kind of in that slot.
This is my Yawgmoth's Will.
Yeah.
Yep, I
This is
don't disagree at all.
A PSA, Yawgmoth's Will is just not that good anymore.
I mean, I love the card. I used to own the card, but I traded away. it's not something I use ever, and
I'm
Underworld Breach
gonna
is just so
agree
much
with that
better.
just to tank the value of it to get a copy. But I disagree.
so
I mean, the artwork-
Yawgmoth's Wills.
The artwork is worth it alone.
It's pretty rad. Let's see. I just want to see if there's anything else I missed. This is pretty much the whole bit, guys.
Wrap it up, Jay.
Wrapping it up. I do think Mnemonic Betrayal still flex spot, still testing, but
The upside is crazy.
the upside is crazy, and this deck needs some mid-range or like later game plays than just trying to do the early game plays late.
The only time that card feels bad, I feel like, is in your opening hand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ideally,
You
you
just
don't
mully
have
it
that.
away unless your hand is like so freaking good. You're sitting on like I mean you don't even want it in a wheel. Like if you're sitting on a wheel and Mnemonic and Betrayal, it's like I'm just like pitching this to the grave
Right.
for Underworld Breach fodder later. But
And one of the cards we just recently cut, I was talking to you guys yesterday because I had 4 cards I had to cut, was Mizzix Mastery. And that was kind of an option I had for kind of going back and allowing me to, like I was saying, just trying to keep attempting the win.
Yeah.
But you guys convinced me to try maybe Mnemonic Betrayal over that, just kind of the general value this is going to have, especially in a wheel package. I think it's going to be great. So
I think it'd be really cool to see too. It's one of those cards that you see it happen and you're just like, yes.
Yes.
That feels as good
It
as
feels
I thought
pretty-
would.
It's going to feel good to cast.
it's going to
Yeah.
feel pretty damn good.
Feels so good.
All right, guys. That's all I got for you. Thank you so much for listening to me do my spiel about my favorite deck.
Get off your soapbox.
I'm getting off my soapbox. Any last questions? Any last remarks?
Ooh, no counterbalance in this list?
No counterbalance.
That's true. That's your favorite card.
No counterbalance. I love counterbalance,
You were
but
hot on that card.
like I said, this deck has to make sure that my interaction is helping me win, and I can't take the chance of.
Sitting back and
Sitting back.
hoping it helps you.
Also, you'll notice that I don't have a single counter spell that is more than 1 mana. It
I
is-
mean, for the most part, your counter spells are free.
Exactly.
Like, 1 mana is like you have to think about it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So notably, I don't even play Delay, which Evan was talking about, the lack of like creature interactions and creature counters. I don't play Delay as much as I would like to, just because it's 2 mana. I gotta keep it lean, and I'm not trying to counter creatures. I need my spells to be 0 or 1 to ensure that I win the game. But that's all I got. I'm going to be taking this to a tournament maybe tomorrow, a little online MoxStars tournament. And then Evan and I are going down to a tournament in Olympia, Washington 2 weeks from now.
Find out what they look like. Come up and say hi. Bother them.
Yeah.
Yeah, come bother us.
Yeah, if you are one of the few people listening to this podcast right now and you want to come say what's up, then do
There's
that.
a lot of people listening to this
If you're one of our
podcast.
avid fans, come say what's up.
Yeah, Jordan will be taking this Malcolm deck, and then we're going to be doing another deck workshop here in the near future that's going to highlight my deck that I'm taking, which is Zakama, King of the Food Chain.
Sakambo. And then we're also going to be having Ritter talk about his Dina Protean Hulk list, which I am in love with right now.
I'm very
It's
excited.
Very cool to
because
watch.
those are lines that I don't quite
Exactly.
understand.
I just don't
Yeah.
know anything about it.
How do you
and
get there?
I want to talk about it. So
We're gonna find out.
Yeah.
We're gonna
So
talk for like an hour.
yeah, hour and some change like this.
9 minutes,
yeah.
5 seconds.
You know, exactly. It's a passion project, so we're gonna ramble a little bit more than normal. But if you guys like this kind of format, let us know. If you have any decks you want to see workshopped, let us know.
You know what? I might actually want to talk about Catilda.
Yeah.
Before that, before Dina, talking about how to play out a stacks deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, like choices, the early game choices you make are very different than mine. So yeah, I'd love to hear about it, hear your processes, hear your thoughts. Awesome. You guys got anything else?
No, let's get it.
All right, sweet guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. This has been the MoxStars podcast. We'll catch you next Friday.
Yeah, catch us down in the description
Yeah,
below.
link tree down below.
Like, subscribe, blah, blah, blah.
Peace out, guys.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Deuces.